Welcome. This is Astrology Insight Now, a weekly forecast program with astrology and other ways to help you make the most of your week and to heighten confidence for daily life. It's run by Pamela Cuccinell, that's me, the astrologer, and I invite you to find out more about my work at insightoasis.com. I look forward to your joining us every week. Please share with your friends, and here we go. As I begin this week's forecast, I want to thank everybody who sent me notes about my going solo now with just the astrology and other things that I'll pull out to utilize. And as I've been thinking about it, one of the things people did ask for was a guided meditation. And I think what I'm going to do is I will do a post midweek, a podcast rather, and that will have a new moon guided meditation, a full moon guided meditation, or something that is pertinent for the week ahead. So this particular offering at the start of the week is going to be pretty much about the forecast of the week. And then in tandem, you can start to expect, not guaranteeing that I'll do it this week, but start to expect meditations that will come maybe bi-monthly, midweek, that offer those other options for people who want to do guided meditations on a more regular format. And I do appreciate the comment, and those of you who've known me for a long time probably know that I used to run new moon guided meditation circles regularly, and at times full moons. So I am more than happy to put out that offering as well. And this is totally appropriate for me to talk about on Monday the 5th, which has Mercury gone retrograde. It went retrograde, depending on when you listen to this, at 12:56 a.m., and that is Eastern time zone, so you'll want to adjust depending on where you live. And what happens when Mercury's retrograde? Well, certainly when it's doing that stationing kind of back and forth. So we're in that orb as you're listening to this, if you're listening early on Monday, the 5th of August, or sometime thereof. It's this storm energy where things are switching. So obviously, Mercury is still moving as it orbits around the sun, but from Earth's perspective, it appears to be going backwards. And over the course of millennium, people have observed that when this occurs, especially for people who have strong Mercury in their horoscopes, so certainly people with a lot of Gemini or Virgo or Mercury that's on what we call an angle, the rising, midheaven, where Mercury is perhaps making a strong aspect to one of the lights, sun or moon, or a personal planet. When this occurs, then Mercurial people often find themselves having to pay more attention to things they do effortlessly. The very Mercurial people you know are the original multitaskers. They can move through many different mediums at the same time and not lose train of thought or bounce around with total adept recovery, whereas people who have more thoughtful approaches to Mercury, and that is not a judgmental statement saying that. When I say that, people born with Mercury retrograde, or perhaps in an earth sign, or perhaps a water sign, these people approach what has always been more rote acceptance of what, oh, you're a quick learner, or you read so well. I mean, that is traditionally considered, oh, this is a very highly skilled communicator. Well, perhaps. there are different forms of communication. And when Mercury is retrograde, it pulls us back to pay attention to the way we often move through the world in a communication capacity. At this point in time, Mercury is in the sign of Virgo, and as it goes through its retrograde journey, sometime around the 14th of August, it will go back into the sign of Leo, and then it will finally readjust itself on the 28th and move forward ahead again from our perspective. So that's when Mercury goes direct. And Mercury is retrograde for a period of about 3 weeks, and we then will experience, as it's going over its shadow, where it already traversed, until it's finally free and clear and moving ahead from our perspective again in a way that's unencumbered. Now, the interesting thing about these few weeks ahead of us is to pay attention when something is brought up again, when you're asked to edit something, when perhaps in the news cycle there's a new look at what seemed to have been an old story or a revelation of some sort. These are things that tend to come up when Mercury is retrograde. So we revisit, we realign ourselves, we reconsider. And that kind of thoughtful consideration actually really strengthens communication. So for people who are writers or are working on a marketing thought or wanting to approach somebody with a new way of seeing it. Obviously, communicators in the news right now, for instance, the United States going through its presidential election vetting. I mean, these next few weeks are going to be highlighted times for people to put their proposals out there, be seen, vetted, observed, and then once it goes direct, theoretically, cards are on the table and we know where we're at. That may or may not be true. We will see. But that's more of a deep dive into Mercury retrograde than my usual saying, oh, well, Mercury's retrograde. So this is how we begin the week. The moon is in the sign of Leo. We had the new moon this weekend. And so we are in this waxing moon energy. And the first few days of a new moon really bring a lot of attention to what is it you want to start? What are you looking at with a fresh perspective, perhaps? And in the sign of Leo, the emphasis is often on something creative, something expressive, something that brings out a sense of play, perhaps even romance. And once again, look at where Leo falls in your horoscope. You may not have a strong Leo signature, in other words, Leo Sun, Leo Moon, Leo Rising, or Venus or Mars, but you do have Leo somewhere in your horoscope. And this is important to pay attention to because we are all made of the same celestial DNA. And the question is, how much is that emphasized? Are we really working that muscle, or is it quieter in the realm of how we express ourselves? That doesn't mean it's not something we can engage in. And when the moon is new, moving through whatever house or activity is emphasized in a Leo capacity, this is a time when we might look at that area of life and say, okay, I'm going to check again my exercise routine, or what's going on with the significant other in my life, or how I push myself out in a career capacity, again, depending on area of life that it's moving through. Keep in mind that Mercury's retrograde. So with that thought, we're also teasing it out, being thoughtful, perhaps editing, revisiting, seeing how we want it to take shape. And during this lunar cycle, perhaps we're not putting it right out there front and center, but we are paying attention to it because the next lunar cycle, when the new moon is in Virgo, as we get into September, that's a time when we're really going to bring it out. So new moons are times when we can work on something with already in motion, with new energy, or do something that we want to get started and out and off our desks very quickly. With Mercury retrograde, we're going to be careful about it, which we always should be anyway. But we especially want to make sure that we've done what editing was necessary before we put it in motion. The moon goes void of course at 11:16 a.m. When the moon is void of course, there's not a lot of glue, emotional glue, to carry a thing to fruition. So pretty much from late morning until early evening at 5:17 p.m., when the moon enters Virgo, it's a really good time to, if you can, just kick back, play, clean off your desk, do kind of things that are already happening, not really start or engage in something. The other thing I should mention that is important is in the morning, before that moon goes void of course, there is a bit of erratic energy about. So if somebody comes at you with a change of direction or you feel a bit derailed, see how much of an upset that really is. Again, Mercury is retrograde, so it could be that whatever the detour is or the supposed, hey, this just happened, is something that you want to really double check. Because oftentimes what may be occurring is that you're getting information that isn't all there, or you don't have everything you need yet. So instead of being very reactive or pulling out all the drama stops, go deeper and understand it better. And that's a really good thing to do when the moon is void of course. Just double check. And so then when the moon enters Virgo at 5:17 p.m., this is a much more productive time of day to follow through, see where you're at, get things in motion with that new moon energy. Now, that being said, the really ideal time to kick things off happens once we get into Thursday, and I'll talk about that more later. But the thing that's important on Monday evening, Tuesday, and Wednesday is that you do things that are productive, that are helpful, that are routines that you know how to do, and really work hard on making sure everybody understands what's going on. Because Mercury's retrograde, moon is in the sign of Virgo, which loves to pay attention to the details and can get lost in the sense of perfection, straightening, making sure everything is aligned and right, which is fabulous when Mercury's retrograde. But when we're in Tuesday the 6th, we have pictures in the sky that show some people can be very short-tempered or feel overtaxed. And this can happen because we're trying to do too many things, or information is coming in from too many directions, or you could do this, or make that happen, or go that way. How about that? And there's the plate is too full to digest the food. And so we want to be mindful of what it is we're taking on, especially for those worker bee types who take on and take on and take on. Because we don't want to short circuit. We don't want to find ourselves overloaded or having a promise too much or extended too much, and then see that, that's not really possible. I didn't have all the information available. Someone didn't tell me something that's really important. And so the ideal is, over these couple of days, is that we work on things that are the things we can handle and have the satisfaction of, okay, done, complete. Because when we get into later in the week, then we're in more of an energy that allows the kind of bigger sweeps and more impactful thing. Not that it can't be impactful what we're doing on Tuesday and Wednesday, but that the actual tangible, yes, I processed this, I did the work, I backed it up, and now we can look at it and present it and see how it flies. But we're not running ahead before we've done the backstory that was so necessary to do. On Wednesday, tempers are a bit calmer. There's not so much, oh, and then there's this, and look at that going on. Now we're in energy that really benefits from, do you have the right partnerships? And if you do, if you're working with people who show up, deliver what they say they're going to do, if they had trouble doing it, tell you. Don't send things half finished or not fully edited. If those are the partners you're working with, this is going to be a very strong day. One of the pictures in the sky is the sun is sextiling Jupiter. So what that means is we have a ability to draw on the beneficial aspects that are around us, the opportunities. We can see them. They are apparent, but we can't really see them if we're bogged down with things that were unfinished or people who didn't show up or we didn't have the right directions or the information on how to get to a place and be there on time. So these are all things that if we had done our due diligence earlier in the week, on Wednesday, we are able to glean the benefits of communication with people who are on our side, who are working for the things that we're also aiming towards. That being said, absolutely write things down, put it in your phone, back it up. Make sure everybody understands. Handshakes are wonderful, agreements are great, but the follow-up is essential. And also make sure when I say follow up, okay, I'm going to send you that information. Send a follow-up note. Was it received? Could you open the file? These things are super, super important at this point in time. Because when opportunities come up, the ability to actualize them has so much to do in how they were received. Because when someone gives you an opportunity or you meet a smile or you can see that there are people who are on your side with it, it's really important to receive that with grace and with acknowledgement, because otherwise it's not necessarily going to stick or stay. So Thursday the 8th, the moon goes forward, of course, at 4:40 a.m. Eastern time again, and it enters Libra at 5:31 a.m. Now, today and August 9th until 5:45 p.m., this is fabulous energy, especially for people who have air or fire strong in their horoscope. And the reason for that is that there is a tremendous push to get in touch with the people who really can help and are important in the long run for whatever it is that you want to make happen. It's interesting as I reflect on this because I'm peripherally part of a group that's been on and off trying to get this concept off the ground that benefits the wider community. And it's a big proposal, but big proposals often start with finding people who share the concept, want it to happen, and then connect the dots with, oh, this is who might be able to help. Oh, this is who might know where the fundraising ability is, or these are people that have been interested in this as well. And what happens with big ideas is they can sound wonderful and amazing, but without the ignition, they don't go anywhere. And so timing is everything. Especially doing astrologer, that's a lot of what I do and look for. So you can be sure that on these days, I'm going to encourage these folks, hey, reach out to that gal we were told knows so-and-so, and here's a great time for us to make the connection with the person who knows the other person in the government or who has more power, who can make these things unfold. So if you've got those kind of ideas on your back burner or know those kind of things that you want to get off the ground, Thursday and Friday are fabulous days to do that. And keep in mind that Mercury is retrograde, but that is absolutely perfect for going back to someone who said, yeah, I'd be interested in that, to that business card that you have sitting on your desk, or the WhatsApp that you took of the person who said, yeah, I could help you with that, or I know somebody who might be interested. It's a perfect time to go back and reconnect. It's, even though with Mercury retrograde we say, oh, it's not ideal to sign contracts or get things in writing, it's really great to revisit and revitalize conversations that maybe have gotten a little stagnant. So these are super, super days for that. Moon's in Libra, fabulous for negotiating, mediating, things that might have to do with legal matters, things that have a cultural spin on it, that connect in some way that benefit a wider community of partnership. Big word with Libra, partnering, alliances. Really, really great for that. So the moon goes void, of course, at 5:45 p.m. on Friday the 9th. And what happens as of that evening into a lot of the day on Saturday the 10th is the moon is void, of course, in the sign of Libra. So what that means is this is a lovely time to enjoy. Enjoy the people you like to talk with, go to a museum, listen to music, savor a cultural experience. Yes, it may not start on time because Mercury's retrograde, but be somewhere beautiful or harmonious. If you're working on a project that needs to get done, or you're busy on something, be sure to be playing music, surround yourself with things that are lovely, like flowers or wonderful scents, things that give you a sense of just the lovely connections that happen by feeling as though you're able to appreciate the world in which you are, but not just the world in which you are, the world in which you are in the human capacity. Libra, the sign of the scales, is interesting because it's the only image in the zodiacal wheel that doesn't have a living creature in it. I mean, sometimes it's represented, we see Athena, a goddess, holding the scales, but in itself, it's the scales, the balance. So it's a tremendous reminder at this time with our deeply polarized world about how important it is to bring things into balance and to reflect on the joy of differences and the weight we put on certain things as opposed to others. And we all do this. I mean, we all have things that we consider more important than others, duties that we need to attend to, values that we consider more important. And yet Libra is reminding us to bring things into balance. And one of the strongest depictions of Libran energy is the goddess Mat from Egyptian mythology. And Mat actually, even though I said goddess at times, is represented a bit asexual. They is a term we would use now. So the goddess, goddess god, they, Mat, is the entity that is met as the soul crosses into the underworld to determine the lightness of the soul. So the soul or heart of the individual is actually weighed on the scales next to a feather. And so I love this void, of course, in Libran time, because even if we have something very heavy that we're dealing with and we're feeling a lot of pressure or a lot of darkness, the antidote is, how do we bring in some lightness? How do we lighten that? And when I think of times in my life, and I certainly have had some crushingly ones that were very, very heavy, the importance for me of taking a break into nature or taking a break into play or lightness, I can't minimize how restorative it was for me. And or seeing, I mean, again, Libra is an air sign, so giving yourself a vista of wide sky, so very important to bring in that lightness of being. And the moon enters Scorpio at 6:34 p.m. on Saturday the 10th, and it carries through till the end of the weekend, and I'll talk more about what's happening next Monday. But what that Scorpio moon brings in is a real affirmation about the importance of bringing in that lightness of being when we are pulling ourselves through whatever heaviness we're going through in this human life. And that's the beauty of the sign of Scorpio. Scorpio is the sign of the scorpion, and the next level, the ascension to the eagle, the the ultimate sky predator that can see everything, observe, and then its highest evolution, the phoenix that has risen out of the ashes. And so if that's happening for you over this weekend, that sense of how do I transcend, transform, move into a place of more lightness of being, then give yourself a place to experience that. However small, short it may be, give yourself that. And you will feel that possibility of lightness, that sense of the horizon and where it will take you next. You have been listening to Astrology Insight Now. Please share with your friends, and if you'd like to make a donation, you can do so at astrologyinsightnow.com. Have a stellar week, and we hope to see you next time.